So welcome to the show, Russell. I just so that the audience know about you, but I always like people in their own words to tell us about themselves.
Well, thank you. Of course, I'm quite dyslexic. Found out that in third grade, and I ended up going to audit law school classes after college with a first grade writing level and reading level.
Mm.
After a couple of weeks, I could read better than any of my classmates, and I solved the writing problems there, and I wanted to share that with everybody. And my first program I did that was funded by the New York State Senate is we took a bunch of dyslexic, motivated college-bound high school students. They were writing at the middle school level, one class period a day for the school year. Their writing became average of entering graduate students by the
Wow.
GRE writing assessment. Oh yeah, they jumped 6 to 8 grade levels within a year. So from that, really what I did is there was this great book called Overcoming Dyslexia by Sally Shaywitz about the neuroscience.
Okay.
And from that, I kind of adapted everything so I can work with work with every type of student. And what I wanted to discuss today is when you're a dyslexic and you're in a relationship, you run into all sorts of problems. And I wanted to give your audience two techniques that I developed for showing students how to overcome advanced research problems. But when I have dating issues, this is what I do. Okay. So I want you to imagine you're having a dating concern. So I'm just going to throw this back at you. Tell me a typical dating concern that an audience member with dyslexia that watched your podcast would probably face. What's one of the most common ones?
Fear of rejection.
Fear of rejection. Okay. So just so you know where all this comes from, there's a book called The Craft of Research by the University of Chicago Press. It was designed for PhD students to learn how to write advanced research papers and to come up with innovative solutions. I've dropped that to fourth grade for the first part of it. So we're going to take parts of my course and we're going to show you how to overcome these dating concerns. So the first thing we need to do is to come up with context. It's context problem solution. The context is we gotta let's call it a dyslexic person in their mid-20s. They're afraid of rejection because of dyslexia. So there's our context. Then we need to simplify it into a shorter problem. And it's simply, I'm afraid of being rejected because I'm dyslexic. So we take a context and then we shorten it to come up with a problem. And then
Mm.
from that, we go and we create a universal thing. So, in your understanding, what is a one word universal thing?
Uh, One word universal theme, you said?
Yes. Are you familiar with them?
No, not. Teach
This
me.
is this is why I really want to make sure people understand. A universal theme, here's the technical definition. It's a concept that applies to all humankind throughout race, throughout history. Okay. So, for example, that's a hard definition, but to give you an example, let's say you were involved in competitive sports in high school and your team came behind and they won because you made the goal. That's called thrill of victory. Then
Mm.
imagine if you were way ahead and the other team came behind and won. Agony of defeat. So,
Mm.
a universal theme is we try to take what we're trying to say and narrow it down to just one word, which really helps us focus. All right. So when we look at when we're scared of being rejected because we're dyslexic, we can go with one of two words: fear or rejected. So I would say we're going to try the exercise with both. So let's go ahead and take fear first. So we go back to the context, and I love using ChatGPT for this. Are you familiar with the artificial intelligence?
Oh, totally. It's my
Yes.
new assessment.
It is really helpful for this. What I would have you do is type out your concern into ChatGPT, have it come up with a context, have it shorten it a bit to come up with the problem. And why we shorten is to come up with those really key words. So fear and rejection. And let's go ahead and use fear. We take context. I'm dyslexic. I'm in my mid-20s. I'm concerned about being rejected on a date. And your universal theme is fear. So take the sentence and look at fear or the universal themes as kind of the lens you're going to look through based on the context. Okay. And then you say, what's a solution? Chat GPT is really good with that. So when I'm just doing this is strictly off the top of my head. When I'm scared of being rejected because I'm dyslexic and I'm very fearful, then my solution number one, because I'm looking at it through that lens of fear, is wait a second, I'm going to take this negative and turn it into a positive. What is something about me as a dyslexic that women like? And for me, it's my intelligence. Okay. As you can clearly see, I'm not Brad Pitt. All right. But they like my intelligence. So then I say, okay, I am going to approach this date finding out the person who I'm dating, what they're interested in, and just having a really good conversation about it. All right.
Okay.
Next thing, when I'm looking at fear, I switch it to a positive again. What's another thing that I can do? I was always very gifted at talking in groups. My classmates excelled at reading and writing papers. I excelled at giving presentations. So I know that my date's going to feel awkward trying to carry on a good conversation. So I'm going to find out what she's really interested in. I'm going to focus on her and I'm going to use my natural ability to communicate. No, that's just 2 points going into this that can really help relieve things. Now, let's go and look at the other word, rejected. So now let's use that as our universal thing. So what I would do is go back to the context and say, yeah, I'm dyslexic. I'm in my mid-20s. I'm really scared of being rejected because I'm dyslexic. Now let's look at the universal theme of rejection. And if you don't really know the definition, ask ChatGPT it, or go up to Merriam-Webster's dictionary and find your definition. If you really wanted to get in your head, type it out on the computer, the word and the definition a few times, and you'll really have it if you can't quite put it together. So again, we're looking at rejection. What is the opposite of rejection that's positive? Acceptance. And again, let's go back to our strength as being dyslexic. What is something that I can learn about acceptance on my date that can help out? Well, when you're dyslexic, I can recall going through school, my my nickname was retard. I was called stupid. I was called idiot all the time. And when you're looking at that, there's something about the strength of dyslexics after we get out of school that we're very accepting of other people. So in that case, I would take what can I do about acceptance with the girl I'm going on a date with? Well, what appears to be some of her concerns, some of her flaws that she thinks she might be rejected about, and then quietly accept them, but don't be like a bull in a china shop and just come out and mention her flaws. That's just rude. I would look at quietly accepting them and doing things that would make her feel more comfortable by accepting what her apparent flaws may be. Okay. What else can we do with acceptance? Because remember, we're taking rejection and turning it on its head to acceptance. What can I do as a dyslexic to accept things? Well, maybe where we're going, the date isn't what I'm most interested in. So, for example, I had a date one time with one. She was about my same age when I was in my 20s. She was really interested in the ballet. Not my cup of tea. It's okay, but it's not something I'm the most interested in. As a dyslexic, I understood growing up how horrible people treated me. So I accepted what she really liked to do, and I was very positive about it. Okay.
Mm,
It's not about us. Look at the other person. Those are just a few ideas. Now, how do we get it really advanced? What you do is you go to ChatGPT and use the most advanced model you can. And you go ahead, you create the context, create the problem, reduce it down to a universal theme, then ask for 50 synonyms, okay, of that universal theme with an age appropriate definition. And then once you do that, explain more who you are and have it pick like the top five and
mm.
do the same thing. But now you're looking at much better universal themes. And as you're going through that, they're much more specific. You're going to generate probably better quality ideas. And I would try the top five.
Mm.
And when you put all that together, now you have a roadmap of how to go ahead and approach your date. Does that make sense?
It does. However, I want to bring in the more emotional piece into it because my background is as a mental health counselor and really helping people with the emotional component of dating. So you brought up acceptance. Can you talk a little about acceptance of oneself when someone has dyslexia?
Yes. The main thing that I found is when you're dyslexic, how do you accept what people view as a negativity? And here's what I can tell you about my life and my journey. I had the hardest time accepting that until, remember when I told you I went to audit a couple of law school classes after college? It came to head for me. And this is my own personal story. Then I'll discuss how we can relate it to everybody else. I walked into my second contracts class, and they teach something called the Socratic method, where they essentially try to embarrass you if you don't know the answer. And then once you don't know, they'll just keep piling on. I have seen students literally get up and run out of the room in tears. So my turn came, and the professor was dyslexic, and he slammed me. Well, everything just came together in a fraction of a second. I started arguing with him. I knew where he was going. Everything just came together that I've studied for years. I couldn't beat him. He couldn't beat me. Went on for 15 minutes, and he said he couldn't be any more correct. He had to move on to the next case. That acceptance, now that I finally understood what all my professors said, that when you go to graduate school, you'll own the place day one. Now I knew what they were talking about. So, what I would say to help accepting who you are is to focus on your specialty, your speciality, your area of extreme interest and ability. Really jump into that with both feet. Really focus on it, get better at it. Try to focus everything you do through that. And what you're going to find is that for the vast majority of us, it's a very valuable skill to develop not only for what we do for work, but also when we go out on dating, finding something you're truly good at that your partner also enjoys. Like, for example, I'm an Eagle Scout. So when I was dating in my 20s, one girl I was dating was always very reluctant to get into a canoe. She always wanted to try it. I said, sure, let's go down to the beachfront. I'll rent a canoe for several hours. Where do you want to go? And she told me. I said, okay. And she's like, do you know what you're doing? And I said, well, I'm an Eagle Scout. I got all the waterfront merit badges. I know exactly what I'm doing. And I just took every little step to make her feel comfortable, holding the canoe, helping her get in, doing every little thing so she's not going to flip over, which was her fear.
Mhm.
So and it turned out she had one of the best days of her life, she told me. So when you're going on dating and you're concerned about, because you're dyslexic, you're told that you're not smart, that you're a dummy, that Nobody wants anything to do with you. And that's been happening to us since we were in elementary school. It leaves a lot of mental scars. Focus on your speciality and really get good at it. Another helpful suggestion is when you're trying to focus on it, don't think of something big picture and move down. That's the way we were taught in school. With dyslexics, it's the opposite. Think of something very specific and then go out. Because here's a little question if you ask a dyslexic. For your speciality, do you have ideas flying around your head at light speed but with little to no organization? Yes. Starting from the specific to the general allows us to think in a linear way, and that allows us to overcome a lot of our concerns. So, a lot of dyslexics that I've spoken with, especially about dating over the years, they would be thinking, I don't know what to do. I'm stupid. And they just get crushed. And I say, okay, no, think about it from the very beginning. What's your specialty? What are you really interested in? What is your partner interested in? You can text back and forth before you go on your first date. Just ask, what are you really interested in? What can we do that could be fun together? But then flip it over. And once you have that, start from a very specific point and then think outward. That will allow you to really focus, and it'll just help you really overcome all the damage we've suffered over the years to really think positively about yourself.
What would you say to someone though who doesn't know what their philosophy is?
I would simply ask, imagine you had $100 million in the bank. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to work again. What would you do with your time? What are you interested in? And it's hard to dig out after all the abuse we suffered over the years. But what do you give me something very, remember, specific to the general. What specifically do you really like doing and that you're really good at? Those two things, not just one. What do you really like doing? What are you really good at? And once you find it, start developing that. And when you're getting ready to go on a date, try to do things in that interest group. Like, for example, I had one friend who was going through this who was dyslexic in graduate school. I said, what are you really interested in? He said, you're going to think it's stupid. I said, no, I'm not. He was interested in bird watching. So he studied it and he found out he was really good at it. So I said, okay, they have clubs that are interested in bird watching. And he met a nice girl there. And well, she was amazed at how good he was at what her passion was. She said, I have a passion for this, but you have like a Michael Jordan basketball skill in this. And that was an attraction. And they dated for years.
Helpful advice. So I like that question there for you. Did not need to work, had all the money, what would you do? That
Exactly. What would you do?
question.
And then what you want to do is you're going to find that you're very good at it. Like, for example, one of my former students, I started working, her name was Courtney, started working with her when she was in fifth grade. Her passion was mid 1970s Ford F-150s, really specific. And I can tell you now, she's over 21. I'll just leave it at that. Uh, the guy that she's dating, he's not as specific, but he's passionate in rebuilding cars. Okay. And that's really what keeps that relationship together. They really enjoy each other's time, but that's the magnet that brought them together. So find out what you're really interested in. Just if you still can't think of it, what I would do is tell people to set aside a weekend and you have absolutely nothing to do until your brain comes up and says, I'm going to do something. And that something is probably your speciality.
Mhm.
Because once you sit literally looking at a wall I had one of my friends did this. He was there for about 3 hours, and he said he got sick of looking at the wall, and but he had to do some activity, or he's going to keep staring at the wall. And he came up, and it was his speciality. which was fishing. I
Yeah.
said, okay, learn about it. There are clubs that you can join about fishing.
Yeah.
And that's where he met his partner.
Yeah. I like to go in a different direction now and talk about technology and dating apps, which involve heavy written communication, reading. What strategies do you recommend for people with dyslexia to so that they can feel more successful on dating apps?
Well, when it comes to reading, there's a great app. What I'm going to tell you is a little bit expensive, but this is what I found works for me. It's called Speechify. Are you familiar with it?
Nope.
It's a app designed for reading, created by a dyslexic.
Okay.
It's about, they have a free version, but it sounds like a robot, which it is. I spend $150 a year, and my selected voice is that of an educated Oxford woman graduate.
Okay.
I just like the English accent, the educated English accent. So that's where my reading comes from. When it comes to how to write things back, I'm one of the few people that spends $200 a month on ChatGPT on the pro version. You can use any model, but I purposely select 4.5 because it's just best at, I tell it what I want it to say, and I say I wanted, here are the three key things. I said I want it to be warm, empathetic, and positive. Warm,
Mhm.
empathetic, and positive. I dictate out what I want to say. It rewrites it, and then I tell it how to edit it. And quite frankly, I go into the advanced voice and I talk to it, and it'll tell me what, it'll read back what it's saying. I'll say I want to make these changes until I'm happy with it.
Mhm.
Okay. You can do a $20 plus monthly version and use whatever one you can. Probably the best one is 04 Hide right now. I just find 4.5 is much more personal if you can get it. And the advanced voice talking back and forth is a lot better than me from typing and trying to read it. So that's been extraordinarily helpful.
Okay. What about people who may not want to use AI? What would you recommend?
The best thing that I would do is look in your social contacts for somebody that you can really trust. But there's usually somebody you know who just has that really successful relationship, that really successful marriage. And I'll just tell you, as a dyslexic, I noticed something that was weird about me. I always tended to have friends that were female over male. I was a cheerleader in college. It was just different. And then I noticed when I spoke to my superiors when I was in my 20s, they said, yeah, we're dyslexic. We tended to have the same thing. All right. If you're a dyslexic female, you're tended to, it's going to be most likely one of your girlfriends.
Mm.
So I would, I was stuck in that situation one time, and I had a friend who was just very happily married, just had a very solid relationship. So I would go over, and here's the key thing. If it's the opposite sex friendship, make sure you get permission from their significant other before you approach them. Saves a lot of headaches. And then what I would do is I would set up a time to meet them at a public space at a nice restaurant you're paying, and then just ask them to just go over things and ask their advice. And honestly, if you don't want to use artificial intelligence, I found that to be the best secondary option.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Good advice. Now, what about disclosing your dyslexia on dates? There's a lot of talk, yes, I'm sure you're aware about when to disclose, how to do it, what to say. What's your advice on that?
My major piece of advice is to slow down. I wouldn't even bring up dyslexia until after date number 3. Okay. It's
Okay.
not like you're saying I have cancer and you're hiding something, because
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, most people don't know. They don't know until you say it. I personally, when I was dating, uh, I wouldn't bring it up until well into the future. Okay. It's not like you're saying because you're dyslexic, you're not worthy. And they're just looked at it. They're like, oh, normally they'll pick it up. Okay. But the first 3 dates, you're really determining, is this somebody I want to spend time with? Do I really want to get to know them? And to me, it's not being dyslexic or, whatever race you are or any of that other superficial stuff. Okay. It's, do I have a real connection with this person? Is this
Mm-hmm.
somebody I really see, I really want to develop a real deep relationship with?
Mm-hmm.
Do we like spending time together? Okay. And I find the easiest thing to do is, once I've noticed that we're beyond date 3, I'll stop using some of my assistive technology, and people will start noticing. And typically, I hate to say this about guys, we don't pick up on this stuff as well as girls normally do, but they'll normally say, "Are you dyslexic?" And I'd say, "Oh yeah." I would say, and if they really want to know, I keep my neuropsych evaluation with me, um, because I share it all the time, because I teach dyslexic parents to teach their kids to overcome dyslexia, and they want to see it, so they can
Mm-hmm.
see what I'm like. And I said, "Yep, here's me." And then I noticed that tends to give us a deeper conversation. But dyslexia isn't something that you let them know on the first couple of dates.
So wait until you have a meaningful connection.
Yes, because, and typically, again, if you're dating a female, they will generally pick up on it. If you're dating a guy, we tend to be rather thick-headed when it comes to this and not notice the little things. But yeah, so what I would do is I'd purposely stop using some of my assistive technologies, and it would become apparent pretty quickly. And honestly, when they find out, um, it's no big deal.
Mm,
Okay, it's a very it's a most people don't know that you're dyslexic until well after the time they get to know you. Some people, I had friends for years who I never told, and finally they heard in a conversation 10 years later, like, "You're dyslexic? How come you never told me?" I said, "Well, you never asked." So I let them pick up on it at their own pace.
yes. And I know we need to wrap up soon. So one last and dating question for you. And that's regarding long-term relationships. And what advice would you give partners about understanding dyslexia and being supportive of their partner?
When you get into a long-term relationship, you need to understand, and this makes it so much simpler for dyslexics, is that every partner has their strengths and weaknesses. And I'll give you an example of one of my friends who's dyslexic. He's absolutely brilliant, but he is an absolute not good person with money. He has a good position, makes a good salary, but he just doesn't know anything to do about managing money. His long-term partner, she said, "Well, nice that you decided to go out with me. I'm an accountant. I'll take care of the money." So what you want to do is you're going to have a lot of weaknesses, and I mean a lot as a dyslexic. The stuff you're really bad at, you want to see if your partner can shoulder that part in your relationship, and you shoulder what you're really good at. Now, what this is going to tell you, in a lot easier for us than for people that aren't dyslexic, because Remember in high school, the valedictorian would think the end of the world if they got a B plus, and we're praying for a B plus. Okay, we're used to rejection. We've been experiencing this since elementary school. What you're going to find out when you do this is when you say, I'm really bad because of dyslexia at X, Y, and Z. Can you take care of this in our relationship? Most of the time, we're dating non-dyslexics, and they may not be particularly good at what you're really bad at. And if they're willing to shoulder that responsibility and do so cheerfully, now you know you have the potential for a long-term partnership. But if they come back and say, I don't want to do this because, or they accept it, but very grudgingly, then you know you got a problem.
But what would you say though, not to the people with dyslexia, but to their partners? What advice would you give them?
What you need to do is here's the issue you're going to run into. If you're in a wheelchair in a relationship and you're in a wheelchair, your partner understands intuitively what problems you're going to be facing. They know how to overcome
Not
them.
necessarily.
No, but they know that you're going to need probably to be pushed around. You're going to need help with things are relatively obvious when you're in a wheelchair. When you're dyslexic,
I would argue that.
no, not
I would
perfectly,
argue that.
but they will have some idea of what you need. Not perfectly, but they'll have some intuitively. They will know that that something needs to be done. With dyslexia, people have no idea, no concept of what you need, what help you need. So when you're in that, this is somebody I want to form a long-term relationship with, what you need to do is then say, here, this is what dyslexia is like for me. Here are my problems. Here's why. This is what I need your help with. Because they just don't know. When you're, I'm sorry about the wheelchair example. I didn't do it very well. All I'm trying to say from that is they can understand that they're going to need some assistance and they'll have some general idea of what that may be. Good, bad, or indifferent. They'll have some concept. But with dyslexia, even when I'm talking to university professors, okay? And when I was looking for some standard accommodations that worked for me that were different from other dyslexics, they were so clueless. Not even even medical doctors, clueless, okay, about what my specific needs were. So when you're talking with your partner, you need to tell them exactly when the time is right. This is what dyslexia is. This is how it affects me. This is what I need your help with. Can I answer any questions? And it's a long conversation. I've had
But
that going on for hours.
so just to clarify my question, I would like you to offer advice in general to partners. Like
So,
what general advice
oh, okay.
would you
So,
give partners?
okay. So if you're a partner of a dyslexic, what you're going to notice is that generally we're scatterbrained. Okay. The best I would like to think is think of us as like Einstein, the absent-minded professor. That's us. We tend to think very rapidly. We tend to shoot all over the place with different ideas. And especially if you're a gen ed partner, who's very logical, like an engineer or an accountant, we can drive you crazy. Best thing to do is when you ask us something and we start shooting over at a million different places with absolutely no apparent coherence, is let us just talk and get everything out. And then once we've done that, then the partner can come in and say, okay, how can we organize this so we can do something that we want? We love to be let go and to just shoot everywhere. And getting the ideas out for us to talk about it, to just go randomly, completely illogical places, that allows us to get things out before we try to organize it and then decide what we want to do. Let it happen. And then, especially if you're an engineering or an accountant type, take everything that we've said and say, okay, how can we put this in step by step, something that makes sense? And that's normally the strongest relationships. You
Mm.
have to know that going in, or we can drive you crazy.
Right, right. Being open on it, and it's what I call my work, bringing the disability into the relationship, kind of like another person, and saying, okay, this is part of the relationship. How do we both work with it?
Exactly. And just remember, again, take a look at the famous picture of Albert Einstein with that chaotic, messy office.
Mm.
Okay. The unkept hair. That is very much what a dyslexic is like. All right. And a lot of times you're going to find, if you're the partner of a dyslexic, that we may be quiet, we may be shut in. And usually what it comes down to is we want to express ourselves, to shoot our ideas out, to go a million different directions in a completely apparently random, illogical manner. And especially if you're an engineering type or an accountant type, that can shut us out and it can really just kill a relationship. Easiest thing to do is find out what we're really interested in, find out our speciality, something that we want to do, and then just let us go off. That 5 or 10 minutes that we're walking around shooting out ideas like crazy, where you think we may be a little mad, that's just us expressing ourselves. And then being a partner by saying, okay, those are good ideas. Here's how we can try to organize something so we can figure out what we want to do today. Now, instead of being an introverted, shameful person, you now have a very happy dyslexic.
Right. Good. It has been such a pleasure to talk with you and to learn more about something I actually don't know a lot about it because I haven't had a lot of people in my program with dyslexia. But thank you for coming and sharing your insights with us. If people want to connect with you, what's in the best way they could do that?
Best thing to do is just to go to dyslexiaclasses.com. That's plural, dyslexiaclasses, plural.com. I'm sorry, dyslexia classes with an S. And you can just find me there and I'll be happy to discuss any of this with you.
Okay, and we'll have that link in the show notes also for you. Thank you so much, Russell, for joining us today.
Okay, thank you very much. It was great being on your podcast.
Okay, yeah, close out the recording. Okay, maybe there we go.